Oh my God, it's like the world can't even stop for 1 second to let me catch my breath. What a busy start to 2020. So much fetch happening. Impeachment, caucuses, coronavirus, Selena Gomez launching a new makeup line that nobody asked for. Today I decided we're going to talk about caucuses and primaries. You can thank my friend Rob Hoyle, aka British Rob, for most of this information. He's from Hull, England, but he's spent the last few months canvassing for Elizabeth Warren in Iowa, and he clearly knows more about the American election system than I do. Also, YouTube. So with that, let's dive in. First, I know what you're thinking. Wait, aren't the caucuses over? No. Iowa was just the first state to kick off this long and draining caucus primary process, which begs the question, what even is a caucus or a primary? What's the difference? Spoiler, if you get to the end of this video, you'll learn how your primary or caucus vote pretty much doesn't matter. Welcome to America, Rob. Caucuses and primaries are basically like mini elections. They happen every 4 years during a presidential election year. They're the first step to determine who the official presidential nominee will be for each major political party, since, there are like 20 options. This election year, the caucuses and primaries focus on the Democratic candidates as they're the party currently not lighting the White House on fire. Now, how exactly these mini elections work and whether they're in the form of a caucus or a primary is up to the individual states to decide. Hence why Iowa has a caucus, but New Hampshire has a primary. Primaries are pretty chill. They're what you envision when you think of a normal voting day. You go to a polling place or complete an absentee ballot, enter a hidden booth, and anonymously cast your vote. Cool, chill, capiche. There are 3 different kinds of primaries, closed, semi-open, and open, that have to do with the structure of voting, but I won't bore you with those details. That's what Google is for. But caucuses, man, caucuses are a whole different ballgame, and they're a bit barbaric. Basically, on your state's caucus day, anyone can show up to one of the several official caucusing locations across your state. Caucuses are usually held in gymnasiums, town halls, or large gathering spaces set for battle like the Roman Colosseum. Kidding. And then the fighting begins. Representatives for each presidential candidate, along with members of the public, argue to convince each other that their candidate is the best candidate. And then they vote. Voters indicate their support for a particular candidate by literally walking to a corner of the room that represents the candidate of their choice and then standing there. The people, aka votes, are counted, and if your candidate receives more than 15% of the vote, you're good, and you get delegates. If not, your candidate is considered not viable, and you either have to convince others to come to your corner and meet that 15% threshold, or your candidate is eliminated and you go vote for your second choice. I know, it's like they think we're animals or something. Iowa and New Hampshire are the first states to kick off the process because literally they just decided they wanted to be first. New Hampshire actually has a law that says that they must be the first primary in the country or they will put your name into the burn book. So naturally, candidates spend a lot of time campaigning in these states because the outcome can really set the tone going into the Democratic National Convention in July where the official nominee is selected. Fun fact though, CBS says that the Iowa caucuses have only predicted the Democratic presidential nominee 7 of the last 9 times. Funner fact, Ted Cruz actually won the 2016 Iowa caucus, and look where he's at now, full beard and not giving a fuck. But this year you might have heard the Iowa caucuses were kind of a shit show. We're calling this one a learning experience. Here's what happened. Like any good millennial, Democratic Party leaders developed an app to manage the complex caucus process and count votes. But since election volunteers are basically your grandparents, no one could figure out how to use the app. A sketch company named Shadow, that Mayor Pete allegedly donated money to create the app, says that there were also some coding issues. Not a good look. Iowa Democrats claim that they conveniently maintained a paper trail to count the votes, but they're not really coughing up the receipts yet. And the official head of the Democratic Party is calling for Iowa to basically redo the whole process. Anyway, if anyone's looking for a new job in brand strategy or crisis communications, check out Shadow. Here's the important piece though. What happens to these votes? Unlike a regular election, the votes don't actually go directly to a candidate. Caucus and primary votes are translated into delegates. Each state receives a certain number of delegates based on population size. Delegates consist of important public figures that go to the Democratic National Convention in July and are supposed to vote based on the outcome of their state's primary or caucus. So, hypothetically, if Joe Biden were to receive 40% of the votes in Iowa, 40% of Iowa's delegates would then represent him and vote for him at the DNC, which is why generally people kind of already know who the presidential nominee will be before the DNC actually happens. But here's the catch. Some states don't make their delegates vote based on the result of the caucus or primary in their own state. So the delegates can literally just say fuck it to the whole system and vote how they want. It seems unfair, yeah. And to top it off, there are also these people called super delegates who attend the DNC and vote for whichever candidate they want based on nothing but their own opinion. Because apparently some people's votes matter more than others. Sheesh. Okay. Now, this whole voting system continues to be the subject of fierce criticism because a lot of people think that the process is antiquated, inefficient, and doesn't accurately represent the opinions of most Americans. Not wrong though. I mean, Iowa is an overwhelmingly red state, has a population of about 3 million people, which isn't that much, and is something like 97% white. So yeah, next up, the caucuses and primaries are coming to New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina. And then March 3rd is Super Tuesday, the day that most states hold their caucus and primaries, and the winner of that day is typically the person launched into the official nomination. So with that, happy voting.